Chapter 6, we're going to start the discussion of, say, what do we do after the SWOT analysis and setting our goals and objectives, and then talk about different strategy options that you have in the company. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about setting company goals and objectives. So based on the SWOT analysis, we talked about the highest priority actions. And the highest priority actions are number one, if you have critical weaknesses related to key success factors, those are industry key success factors, then those typically are going to be your highest priority actions. So you're going to choose what you feel to be the most important weaknesses that you have. We have to fix the weaknesses. We have to fix our weakest link before we can move forward. So that has to be done first, unless, and the exception to that would be if you have some critical threats that you think have high impact on the company and that need to be dealt with first, then that might become your highest priority action. And then secondly, we're going to identify the SO strategies from your TOES matrix, or your linking your strengths to external opportunities. So we're going to look at ways to capitalize on the opportunities out there in the environment. And strategic fit really means that we are going to try to choose those opportunities that match what we do well. And let me say something about this. When we set our goals and objectives, it's okay to start talking about goals in very general terms at first. And oftentimes in a strategic planning committee, that's what you'll do. What do we want to do? Well, we want to improve our product quality. That's a weakness. Okay, so then what we need to do, however, is get to the point where we are identifying specific objectives that are measurable so that we can know as we go along through the process, as time goes by, we can measure it and know if our strategy is working. So we want to make sure that we set specific objectives that are measurable, because that's what provides the accountability, the motivation to make sure that employees get things done so that they can go the extra mile to make sure that it gets done. So we want it to be quantifiable, and we want it to contain a deadline. So it's not just we want to improve sales by 5%. By when? Most of us are motivated by deadlines. I know I am. So let's tell everybody this is when we plan on achieving this objective, and that's what provides the real motivation to make sure that it gets done. What we would like to do is stretch everyone so that the organization can achieve its full potential. And in order to do that, we oftentimes have to create a sense of urgency, that these are things going on in the environment. If we don't act today, we will be left behind. So let's hear what Professor Cotter has to say about creating a sense of urgency. He is one of the leading researchers in the nation on change management.
I wrote the book, The Sense of Urgency, because it's very clear to me that it's becoming increasingly important to organizations everywhere, and that for a variety of historical reasons, most of us don't understand it. It's not there, and it's not there because people don't want it. They just don't understand that they need it. Urgency is fundamentally an attitude, a way of thinking, a way of feeling, and a way of behaving. It's a sense that the world out there has enormous opportunities and hazards. It's this gut-level determination that we've got to deal with that. I've got to do something today, each and every day. Get up with this, I'm going to do something that's important. It's behavior that, by its very definition, if you feel that way, that's very alert, that pays attention to the stuff out there, that moves, that gets away the junk, because you can't do everything, and 100 hours a week could die. It's this determination not to just have a meeting today, it's to have a meeting that accomplishes something today, to move us forward on important stuff. The fundamental reason we need urgency is because the rate of change is going up. Everybody says that, very few people believe it. If you look at the data, though, all the way from number of patents filed, M&A activity, all kinds of global activity. It's going up like that. It's not even linear. And the faster the world moves, the more you need to change. And what we've found again and again and again is that right at the beginning of successful change is you get a sense of urgency going. And if you don't, everything slows down, everything is tougher, everything's more frustrating. Hence, rate of change is up. This is very important. Fundamentally, urgency benefits managers because it starts to get the type of behavior they need to deal with the kind of environments they're dealing with these days. It benefits you because you start doing what's right, and with a little bit of luck, people will notice that, and that helps your career. More importantly, it starts creating the kind of environment around you that can deal with all those external opportunities and hazards, and hence gets stuff down faster, smarter, less frustration, fewer resources, on time. I mean, it's a big deal. One of the problems of why we don't have enough urgency is people look in their organizations and they see something that you might call a false sense of urgency. It's not a true sense. It's a lot of activity. It's a lot of energy moving around. And so you say, well, you know, we're not complacent, obviously. But what it is, it's just activity. It's people running from meeting to meeting. It's driven by anxiety and sometimes anger. Urgency is so different than that because it is determined by this kind of gut level wanting to move now, win. It is based on a realistic sense that there are great opportunities and hazards out there. It is a set of behaviors that isn't just running around, it's running around in smart ways. It's getting rid of junk so you don't go from meeting to meeting to meeting. You get rid of the stupid meetings. It's looking out there so you really do see the important things. And therefore focus on them. False urgency isn't that way at all. And the reason it's so important to make this distinction is so many people, and I'm talking smart, experienced people, look in their organizations and say, no, we don't have an urgency problem. But what they're seeing is this frenetic, often anxiety-driven mess that gets them nowhere.
There are two types of objectives. One is financial objectives, and a lot of, especially American companies, tend to focus maybe too much on financial objectives, and that tends to focus you more in the short term than in the long term. So we need to have a combination of both financial and strategic objectives. Strategic objectives are focused on your competitive position, oftentimes are related to the marketing function. So an example of a financial objective would be a certain percent increase in annual revenues or a certain percent decrease in cost and certain types of cost or credit ratings. Examples of strategic objectives have to do more with competitive position, such as improving product quality, winning certain percent market share, improving customer satisfaction levels, increasing brand name awareness, and those kinds. Okay, so this is an example of McDonald's strategic objectives, and you can see they have a mix of financial and strategic objectives. Which ones are strategic? Can you tell? They are the first two. The first one has to do with customer satisfaction. The second one has to do with distribution. The second one, both of them need a time frame, don't they? You know, add approximately 350 net new McDonald's restaurants. Well, first of all, is that worldwide or in a specific geographic area? Again, as specific and measurable as possible. And then secondly, by when? And the first one is not specific at all. It's a very general goal. So in order to motivate, we need to make sure that it is specific and that it is measurable. You might measure it in terms of customer satisfaction surveys, for example. We want to be sure that we use what we call a balanced scorecard for measuring company performance. And the reason is that we would like our financial and strategic objectives to be equally important, and that keeps the company focused on the long term and not the short term. There is an exception to that rule. The exception is if the company's financial performance is dismal, you have to keep your head above water. So in that case, in the short term at least, you may have to focus more on financials in order to survive in the long term. Everyone in the company will be involved in setting company goals, strategic goals, and objectives. And we're going to use sort of the funnel approach, top-down approach. So we're going to go, very broad, organization-wide, all the way down to individual employees, so that each individual employee knows what he or she needs to do to help the company achieve its long-term goals. This is management by objectives. Okay, so based on your goals and objectives, your next step would be to develop strategy. Okay, we're going to do sort of an introduction to strategy for the rest of this chapter on objectives and setting strategy. And remember back in chapter 1, we talked about the goal of a strategic plan, and that was to differentiate us from competition in some way. And we're going to talk about the different strategies to differentiate. But our goal is to develop a niche, something that makes us different. So your textbook refers to this as a strategic sweet spot. And it is where, what you develop is really hitting the nail on the head in terms of satisfying your customers' needs better than what your competitors can do. So what you're going to see here in this graph is that you have the set of customer needs, you set of your core capabilities, and then what your competitors do out there in the marketplace. You'll see some overlap between what you do and what your competitors do, and much of that will be what customers need. But you'll see the sweet spot is what you do well that your competitors don't offer. What do you do that's different that they can't do? And that difference might be that your price is better, but that's the most difficult strategy, as we said, to maintain in the long term, unless you have a cost advantage. Normally that difference is going to surround something else. It could be features, it could be services, it could be geographic location, but it could also be product quality. Michael Porter identified 5 different ways that you can compete in the marketplace. And it's based on 2 things. One, it's based on how broad your target market is. That's what we call competitive scope. And it's based on your primary way of differentiating, whether it's going to be based on cost or other things, which is the differentiation approach. Now, most companies, especially new companies, choose a differentiation strategy because smaller businesses, it's just too difficult to compete based on cost or price. Just not large enough, don't have the efficiencies, don't have the economies of scale. So you see there are 5 basic approaches. It's either based on cost leadership or taking a more focused cost approach. That's a narrow target market, smaller target market. Differentiating based on some benefit or service or product feature. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or using a blended approach, which is what we call the best value. The best value says, look, I'm different, but I'm also going to offer you a cost advantage, a price advantage as well. If you see Walmart as the cost leadership of retail department stores, then Target might be perceived as the best value. A Saks Fifth Avenue might be a differentiation. So there are different ways that we can differentiate based on product quality. And quality is just one way to differentiate. Again, you can differentiate based on services, based on geographic location, different ways to differentiate. But just on quality, a lot of research has been done, and you can see here are 8 dimensions of quality, and this is not a comprehensive list. Either on the product's performance, or having the bells and whistles, or being more reliable, more durable, easier to repair, less costly to repair, how it looks. Think about the different ways that you choose an automobile, for example. Do you have your top list of things? And mine has changed over time. Yours has probably changed over time. So, as a business, as a marketer, I would look at my target market and identify what I feel to be their top list in terms of how they choose the product. And hopefully I can differentiate, I can be superior, in those ways. There are risks to choosing each one of the Porter's competitive strategies that we talked about. And the primary risk in every one of these, of course, is that your competitors will imitate and they will be as good as, or maybe even better than you at it. So we have to continually change with the environment. We have to make sure that if we do choose a differentiation approach, that that's going to cost more money for you to implement the differentiation strategy. If you're trying to, for example, compete based on quality, it costs more money to produce a higher quality product, doesn't it? And so what you want to know is that that quality difference is valuable to your customers. And you don't want to make the mistake of trying to offer your product at the same price as someone who doesn't have the higher quality, because that erodes your profits. Over time, it's probably a losing strategy. So we want to make sure that the basis for differentiation is important to our buyers, and that you can, in fact, the business model works out, you can make money with the strategy.